Hello, it's Alfehi and we are back with Arena Meta Update video. Now this time we're gonna be talking about normal Arena only, and this meta is based on my server mostly, but I did also ask a couple other players what their meta looks like, so I think they had pretty similar one with mine, so hopefully this is helpful to you. I mean, I guess in theory the meta on your server could be very different from mine, but this is what it looks like to me. And I guess we're going to be mostly focusing on Bunny related teams because she seems to be really heavily featured in the meta right now. But I do have some notes about other teams as well, but let's get started with the Bunny teams. Here we have a kind of like the core of the typical Bunny team. So you have your Pesto, Tailin, Tassi, and then Bonnie, and then you pick one of the other options, so you either go with Lily May and then one of the healers. Now, these are some variants of the team that I have been seeing on the different teams on my server and the Pioneer server and some other player servers. So just like, it's basically these same heroes with some different variations. Sometimes people are using Satrana as well. She has good synergy with Bonnie, and also she can give some magic resist for the whole team, because when you're fighting against teams with Tassi and Tailin, etc., magic resist can be really good. And then on the Pioneer server, I also saw some teams using Dunlinger as part of their team, and those seem to be like pretty decent, but at the end I was able to like win against those defenses as well, but I'm gonna showcase a couple of those teams in this video as well. But usually this is kind of like the core of a Bonnie team. So the best synergy with Bonnie is, in my opinion, with Satrana, Tassi and Tailin, because they will make it so that you can spread the aging debuff as fast as possible. And Cassidy, in theory, she also has the ability to help with spreading the debuff, and she can be used, but I did some testing with her and she just is not as good as the other options. So if you have the other options, then I would recommend using them instead of Cassidy, but if for some reason you have her built up, then you can try using her as well. The thing about her is that she has very short range, so the range is only 3 tiles or something, and also she's Lightbearer faction, so usually with these teams you are running either Graveborns or Wilders, so she kind of doesn't fit into the team faction-wise either, but you can definitely give her a try if she's your best upgraded hero. Then we can talk about counters to Bonnie team. So the best way to counter a Bonnie team is to kill Bonnie before she can get the aging debuff out. And it is possible if you are able to stun her right at the start of the battle, because if you didn't know, it takes Bonnie about 2 seconds to cast her aging debuff. So if you can do the stun before the 2-second mark, then you can prevent her from casting the aging buff if you can then kill her during the stun. So the best ways to do that is with Nara, if you are able to pull the Bonnie into your team and then kill her while she's crowd controlled. Sylvina can also do that. She will start the battle by stunning, and she's an assassin, so usually she can kill the Bonnie. And then you have your Aaron plus Ulmus burst combination, so you group every one of the enemies in with Aaron, and then your Ulmus will crowd control the Bonnie, and then hopefully you have enough damage to kill her while that's happening. So these are definitely the easiest ways to counter her. So in my opinion, the best Bonnie team looks something like this. Now, obviously, it's possible that there is a better Bonnie team out there that people just haven't discovered or I'm not aware of. But right now, I think the best is to bring in Pesto Bonnie and Lily May. And I think Lily May is quite important because if you don't bring Lily May, then your opponent can just bring Aaron and Olmus, and they don't have to care about the Aaron ultimate being interrupted. And then after that, you can bring either Tassi on Tailin, and then the last spot is either one healer or Tassi or Tailin. So you can run like one healer comp, or you can even run no healer comp, although that is quite risky comp, but I can show you some teams that do that. And I think map 4 is the best one. So this is the defense that I have been using for a long time already, and it's been working pretty well. Now there are some ways to counter this, and I will get to that, but I think this is pretty good defense still. And then other option is to run something like this. Now, like I said, instead of Tassi, you could run Tailin, for example, or instead of Damien, you could run Ludovic, or you could switch out the positioning, like have, Tassi at the back, or Bonnie taking the buff from best or whatever. But I think in general, like these two teams are maybe the best ones. Okay, so that's a quick overview into the Bonnie team. Then we can go a bit more in detail about the different arenas. So let's start with Arena 1. Now, in my opinion, if you are running a Bonnie defense, then I would not use Arena 1. Or at the very least, if you do run Arena 1, then you should probably run Enlightening Spell, targeting your Bonnie. But I have not tested that one, and I haven't seen anyone else testing the Enlightening Spell version, so I don't know how good it is. And obviously, if you're running Enlightening Spell, you're kind of making your team weaker, because Enlightening Spell is not as good as Confining Spell with Bonnie, because Confining Spell will let you spread the aging debuff more. So I don't know, then does it even make sense to use this map because of that reason? So why exactly is this a bad map to use Bonnie on? Well, as I mentioned earlier, 2 of the 3 easiest counters to Bonnie teams are Sylvina and Nara. And in order to use these 2 heroes, you need to have the target on a symmetrical position. And in map 1, if you're setting up your defense, you can't avoid the enemy from having the option to do that. So for example, here you can see that if we are the attacking one and we place Sylvina in this style, it will target Bonnie straight away, or if we place it here, it will target Bonnie straight away. So that way we can kill the Bonnie without the Bonnie being able to even use their aging debuff, and then it's just like an easy fight for you after that. So you can run something like this, for example. This should work, or then you can run like Tassi in here as well. These both have been tested. At least I was able to win these fights, and you can see that the Paragons are in favor of the opponent. In this one, the Paragons are quite even, but at least if you're like on even level with the opponent, you should be able to win quite easily. So one thing to keep in mind is that if the opponent is running this formation and the Bonnie is kind of like enclosed by the other team, then you can't use Sylvina as well, because Sylvina will jump in and she will stun the Bonnie, but then because everyone is so grouped up, she will usually switch her target to attacking someone else, like they will attack the Besto instead. So in this situation, you would have to use Nara to pull the enemy from here, pull the Bonnie from here to here, and then you should be able to do it. One thing to consider is that you have to be a little bit careful when you're pulling in, so that if there is no space to pull in, for example, I think this positioning is a little bit sketchy, but I think maybe the Bonnie got pulled into here or something. But sometimes if you're trying to pull it and there is no space like around the Nara, then the Bonnie might like end up in here instead, and then you might not have enough damage to kill her. It's good to bring Ludovic if you're using Nara, because then Ludovic will also stun the Bonnie, because the flower field also has a stunning effect. So this is like better room, so you leave room here, and then the Bonnie will be like pulled in here, middle of all of your team, and then she will just die. Oh, and by the way, after recording this video, I went out and tested this same fight on normal arena with just using epic Nara, and I was still able to win the fight. And you can see that the opponent has like almost all of their heroes are Paragon 1 at least, and we were using Supreme Satrana and we were using epic Nara, and we were still able to win. So even if your Nara is not like highly developed, you can still try this comp and you might be able to win. And I'm not gonna say that you will 100% win every time, but it is possible to do it with just lower level Nara as well, because her main job is just to pull the Bonnie in, and then hopefully your team can kill the Bonnie. And then after that you just have to sustain enough so that your own Bonnie debuff will kill the enemy team. So just these are some of the defenses that I've seen people use, and on a friendly duel, just to kind of like show the point that I was trying to make, I tried this to fight this team on a friendly duel, and I was able to win with 4 heroes, and my Satrana was even not Supreme Plus, and the enemy had like Paragon 2, Lily May, etc. Now, like I said, it is in friendly duel, so it's not same as normal arena, but still it should give you kind of like an idea how easy it is to win these teams usually. Okay, so then we can talk about Arena 3. Now there is a lot of different variations of this team when it comes to Arena 3. These are some of the ones that people have been using, so some people are using Satrana. Now personally I would say that I don't think it's good to use Satrana on a defense team. They are using something like Tassi and Tailin and kind of like trying to spread out the heroes. And yeah. And then this is the version that was on. These are both from the Pioneer server, and they were using Dunlinger. Now this is quite interesting because obviously Dunlinger is preventing enemies from doing their ultimates, so it means that you can't use your Aaron almost burst team against these teams, so you have to use something else. So let's talk about the ways that you can usually win against all of these teams. So I would say that most of the defensive teams you should be able to win with the burst team. And these are like 2 of the variations of the burst team that I'm mostly using. So if you don't have some of the heroes in this formation, you could use something like Niru instead of like Brian, although I think Brian is a better option when it comes to burst teams, but I guess if you don't have him, then you can try using Nero instead. And then instead of Bonnie in this one, you could also try using someone like Alsa, or you could try using Arden in this position. And it can also work just as well as the Bonnie, but I think the Bonnie team is pretty good with this positioning. And then another team that I've been using, like sometimes if I want more crowd control, so maybe against teams with like Tassi, for example, you can use Arden. And then if you're not running Bonnie, you can use some like enlightening spell instead with this positioning. And this has been working quite well as well. Now, of course, the most important damage dealer in both of these teams is usually the Carolina. So if you have like a plus, I don't know, 15 or 25 Carolina, then it makes this team even better. But I have been able to win against these teams with just plus 10 Carolina as well. And I have a plus 10 Arden. And then my Bonnie is a bit more, plus 25. Now, if the enemy is not running Lily May on their defense, now this is when they are running Lily May, then you have to bring in Brian or you have to bring in Niru. If they are not running Lily May, then you can just do something like this instead and run Satrana in here. And then this hero could be anything, but Tassi is like maybe probably the safest option, especially if the opponent is also running Tassi. But it could be someone else. It could be like Carolina or Arden once again, or something else completely. But this team is quite safe if they're not running Lily May. And that's why I think usually if you're running a defense, you should run Lily May as well. And then sometimes, like I said, even on map 3, you can use Nara. If the enemy is placing their Bonnie at the backmost spot, then you can just place Nara here and she can pull the Bonnie in. And then I guess these two heroes doesn't have to be the same. In theory, this could be whatever. But then the idea is that you just pull the Bonnie in and then you kill the Bonnie. And then usually the teams are not as scary after they don't have Bonnie. This could be, like I said, anything really. And you can also use this team if the enemy has placed Damien in this spot and then they have Bonnie in this spot. It will still pull the Bonnie from here because it won't target Damien. And I guess if they had like Scarletta in here or if they have Lily May in here, I would think that the Bonnie would be still targeted in that situation. So then you can just kill the Bonnie. So that's why if you're running defense on map 3, I would probably recommend not having Bonnie at the back spot, or on this spot if you then have like Damien in here. I guess you could once again try using an lightning spell if you're running Bonnie at the back slot, but then you are losing some power from not having the confining spell. So yeah, you can try something like this. And then you also, of course, just have the option to use like a kind of similar team to what the defender is using. If you have like stronger version of those heroes, then you can just use like one of these teams kind of to fight against the opponent's team. And in situations where they are running the Dunlinger, then you can't use the Burst team, obviously. Then you can just try to use something like this. For example, I was able to win against these Dunlinger teams with, I think with this one especially. But yeah, if you don't have Bonnie, you could probably just use something like Tailene instead of the Bonnie in here, or like Lily May instead of the Bonnie in here, or Scarletta, or something like that. And if you don't have Pesto, you could try running something like Thoran instead. Here is also one kind of team that someone was using against one of my Bonnie teams early on in the season, and I think they were able to win against the Bonnie team, so this can definitely work, but I would say it's weaker than some of the other teams that I have shown. But if you like don't have the heroes from the other teams, then you can maybe try something like this as well. These are some teams that were used on another server. Like I haven't attacked these teams, so I don't know how well they work, but they are kind of like doing like a Bonnie with double healer and Lily May. And now I guess the second healer could be Ludovic as well. Like instead of Damien, you could probably run Ludovic. But I don't think these teams are gonna change much when it like these attack teams should be working just fine against these teams. And then this was also something that someone else was running on one of the other servers, so I haven't really tried attacking this one on like the normal arena, but I did one attack on friendly duel and I was able to win with just 4 heroes against this one, because once again they don't have Lily May, so you can just like run Aaron and Olmus and then Bonnie and Satrana. And yeah, I was able to win with 4 heroes against this one. I don't know, maybe it would be different on normal arena, but I would say it's probably not the best defense team. So then we can talk about Arena 4, which has been, in my opinion, kind of like the hardest arena to win against. Now, this is the defense that I have been using for quite a long time, and it has been working pretty well. I'm not sure that people know how to attack against this team, but I mean, there are quite a few ways that you can actually do it, so let's go into it. So the reason why I think this defense is kind of good is because of the way that you're able to split your heroes into 2 groups. So if the attacker is trying to use Aaron Almost Burst, then if they have their Aaron on any of these tiles, then based on my experience, the Aaron will, for whatever reason, ultimate these 2 heroes instead of these 4 heroes. And then that means that your Bonnie will get the aging debuff out, even though you don't even have a healer in this team. But then it is possible for the enemy to use the Aaron in this position or this position, and then they have like a Brian in here. And then they will hit these heroes, but then your Tassi and Tailene are kind of safe from the AoE burst. And then hopefully, because they are running usually like a burst team, don't have healers or sustain, then hopefully your Tassi can just kind of go in and kill the enemy. So that's why this team is kind of working well. But like I said, there are quite a few ways you can win against this team. Now the first way is just to mirror the team. So if you have the same heroes and your heroes are better in terms of like their exclusive weapon level and paragon levels, etc., then you can just mirror that team and you should be able to win. At least that's how someone has been winning against my defense on my server. So they just have a couple paragons higher and then they mirror the team and they are winning. Another way that you can win is by using Walker in this position. Now Walker is not someone you usually see, but Walker has, if you have him at Mythic Plus, I think, he has the ability to stun when the battle starts, so that then you can, if the Walker is placed here, then he will stun the enemy Bonnie, and then when the stun ends, because you're using Confining Spell, the Confining Spell will also hit on the enemy Bonnie, so it will take a really long time for the Bonnie to cast the Aging Spell, because first the stun and then the Confining Spell, and usually you're able to kill the Bonnie before the Confining Spell ends, so then they don't get the Aging debuff out. And the way that you kill them is obviously you have your own Bonnie doing damage to the backline, and then you have your Tailene also doing damage to the backline, and then usually that's just enough to kill the Bonnie. And then also because you have 3 heroes in this part of the map, then that means that Tassi will just fly there, because that's the furthest distance, so Tassi will ignore these 2 heroes here. And then because you're running Ludovic here, then Tassi will usually be stunned, because the Ludovic's flower field is here, so once she flies in, she will be stunned, and even if she is not stunned and she will, do her AoE damage here, it's not as effective because you have Ludovic like healing all of the heroes here. So yeah, that is the tactic with the Volker. Then you can also do something like this. I don't know how well this team actually works. If you are weaker than the opponent, I think you have to be on quite like equal level with the opponent for this team to work. But the idea is kind of similar, that because the enemy has Tassi here, then your Lilimei will first down the Tassi, so that's 1 revive gone, so Tassi will be not able to do a lot at the start of the battle, and then once she's done recovering, she will kind of fly here, but once again she's stunned by the Ludovic's field, and then hopefully by that time your team has been able to kill like most of the enemy team once she comes back, and then your Lilimei might be able to like cancel the next Tassi ultimate. So I have been able to win against this team using something like this, but it's not maybe as secure as the other strategies. And then you can also run something like this with just kind of running similar comp to the enemy team, but then running Satrana for the extra magic resist, and then hoping that you have like more sustain than the enemy team, because the enemy team is not running any healers. So then if your Ludovic is able to keep the team alive, then you should win in the long run. I can show you a couple of the replays with these fights, and I was able to win them, and we had like equal power level in terms of like paragons. Both of the teams had like 1 paragon hero only. But in this example where I used the Skalita team, it was like really, really close to the Ludovic dying. And I think if your Ludovic dies, then you will probably lose as a result. So ideally, if you are using like these 2 comps, then your Ludovic would be at least like plus 10, or the higher the better, because obviously he's tankier the higher your exclusive weapon is. And my Ludovic in these cases is even like Paragon, so he's kind of more tankier. So just keep that in mind, that I think if your Ludovic dies in these situations, then you will probably lose. Okay, so that's how you can win against this team. Then we have kind of this team that is running one healer, and then they're running only Taili, not running Tassi, and they have all of their heroes like grouped up. So I actually haven't been able to win against this team on normal arena, because only one player on my server is running this defense right now, and the power level difference between our comps is like decent. I think they have like some Paragon 3 heroes and some Paragon 2 heroes, and I have mostly like Supreme Plus or Paragon heroes, so I haven't been able to win against this comp. But on duel mode, I was able to win against it using something like a burst team with kind of this positioning, and then using this same kind of like Satrana Tailin team. So in duel mode, I was able to win. But you have to keep in mind that duel mode can change the outcome of the fight quite drastically, I guess, because charm effects are there. So if you are able to win someone in duel, it doesn't mean that you are also able to win them in the normal arena. Now I think this comp should be able to win if you are like on like equal level with your opponent, but I am not able to win with like the Paragon difference using this comp. And then kind of same situation with the burst team. I'm not able to win because of the Paragon difference, but maybe if we were more equal, then I would be able to win using this team. Then there is this variation of the team on my server, and I haven't really fought against this comp multiple times, so I don't have a good counter for it. Now I was able to win using this team, and I think this might be actually quite decent. I would have to do more testing to see if this is like actually like one of the best variations, because the thing is that you have like healing, so that if the enemy is trying to use a burst team, then I guess you would have to once again, maybe you would have like your well, you can have Aaron in, or like Brian in here, Aaron in here, Ulmus in here, and then you would maybe run Carolina in here. So Carolina is able to burst here, and Ulmus will walk to tank here. But then I don't think Tassi will be pulled in here, so then Tassi is kind of preventing from these heroes from doing damage to this area. So it's not 100% that your Carolina alone is enough to kill the enemy Bonnie. And so it is possible that the burst team doesn't work against this comp because of the Tassi kind of like interrupting some of the burst, I would imagine, from here. So I haven't done much testing. It is possible that like burst team, like something like this would work against this team as well, but I would have to do more testing. But this is maybe something that you can try. But this team was able to win against it. Then we have basically the same team, but with a little bit different placement of heroes. And instead of Tailin, we have Tassi. Now I think in a way Tassi is like scarier than Tailin, but with this placement especially, there are some things that you can do. So I would, if I were to use this comp, I would maybe switch around so that the Tassi is placed either at the back or the Tassi is placed here, and then the Lily May is like switched where the Tassi is now. But yeah, let's talk about some of the ways that I've been able to win against this team. So once again, we can use the Walker team, and it should work against this one. So even if there is Damien in here, you should be able to kill the Bonnie during the like the stun period of like Walker and the confining spell. At least I have been able to do it, and my heroes are not like super high. You can see that the only Paragon hero in this team is Ludovic. So even with this team, I was able to like kill the Bonnie, so the Valkyrie team should work. Then one thing that you can do is that you can use Rainier and Alsa to swap the Tassi in here with the Alsa, and then you can kill the Tassi before she like does her thing. So that's why I think if you're using this combination, you should move your Tassi to the back or to here, so that if the Lily May is here, then the swap is not gonna be as effective. Now it's possible that the swap comp still works, but at least it's less effective in my opinion if you do it that way. So this comp works. Then I was also able to win using like a burst team in kind of this formation. So you have Carolina in close range because Carolina's range is quite low, so that Aaron will group up everyone here. Carolina will burst them down, and then you know, your Arden is gonna hopefully able to crowd control the Tassi enough, and you are running enlightening spell, because when you're not running Bonnie, you can just do enlightening spell instead. And then also using something like this, I was able to win against this comp, but I think this was maybe like the sketchiest one of the fights, so I probably wouldn't use this. If you have the other options, I would try them first, but this is also possible, and this could be like Brian instead of Niru. But yeah, this could also work. And then we have one comp that was used on the Pioneer server. So I haven't seen this on the live servers, but this was actually quite difficult to win against. Dunlinger obviously prevents you from running any burst team, because you can't start the battle by ultimating. And then the enemy has like a lot of damage with these heroes here. So I was able to win against this team using something like this. But if you have Dunlinger, then I would probably test using this team and see how it goes. But yeah, there are some ways to win against it. And here are some extra teams that people have been running from different servers. I have not tried fighting these teams just some examples from other servers as well. Then we can talk about other teams other than Bonnie teams. These are some like teams that you have probably, if you've played longer, you have seen these teams. They were kind of like the previous meta teams, and some people are still using them. Maybe don't have Bonnie, or maybe they don't care or think that these teams are better, and it's possible that they are still like just fine. But this is maybe the most like common old meta team. But there is like quite easy way to counter this team. So this is like one of the ways that if people are still using this team on your server, you can use something like this to counter it. And then there is like this Scarletta Haven team. This team should probably work decently well still, but if you have these heroes, then you can give it a try. Then there are these Tassi Tailin teams without Bonnie, so instead you're just bringing Lily May and a healer and someone like Toran. I haven't really fought against these teams because these are not very common on my server, but some of the other servers were still using these teams. I did try using something like this against one of these teams on a like friendly duel, and I was able to win, but once again it's a friendly duel, so I don't know if it actually wins, but you can probably just run like your Bonnie team and do well against these teams as well. These are different variations of the Tassi Tailin team. And then this is the old like Arena 4 team. On my free-to-play account I was still using this team before I got my Bonnie upgraded, and it was doing like okay. So you can use, this is basically the same heroes but just in different formation. Or you could run Tassi instead of like Haven, for example, so just switch out Haven for Tassi. And these teams are just fine. You can just still use them and maybe give them a try if they work better than your Bonnie defenses. Then we can quickly talk about Twins teams. Right now on my server there are no twin teams on the top 20, or at least not in like the top 10, so I don't know how well these teams can work on defense. And when I asked some other players what their server looks like, there were only like 2 twin teams, and I didn't really include them because to me those teams didn't look good. I think you are just able to win against those teams with using like Aaron almost burst team. Now on the Pioneer server, these were the different twin teams that I tested, and they were working pretty well. Now for attacking especially, this team is good for attacking, so if you want to try it, then go ahead. This is the placement of the team. But for defense, this team is not as good. You can probably run it on defense, but you would have to make some changes, like instead of the star shard spell, you would probably use like enlightening spell, and you would maybe do some switching with the positions. But you can try this for attacking for sure, it should be good. Then for attacking especially, this kind of like wilder team can be good, because you will get like crowd control protection from the twins. So if you're fighting like Tassis, etc., then they will kind of lose some of their power if they can't crowd control your team. But for defense, I don't think this is good team either. Like for defense, especially for defense, if they are bringing burst teams, then usually it's just enough to kill your team. And secondly, if they have Dunlinger, then obviously the twins lose most of their value because they can't cast their ultimate. I think this team has some potential for defense because you are running like 3 support heroes, or well, I guess 4 support heroes if you count the twins as well. But this is probably the best team when it comes to defense team. So you can do something like this on your defense, or Igor could be some other healer like Damien. Probably Damien is the best alternative to Igor, but I was running this team as a defense on the Pioneer server as well, and I was definitely able to win some fights, not all of the fights. And once again, if they have Dunlinger, then this team probably loses some of its value. Now, this is not like a horrible team against Dunlinger, because this is wrong. I think this is wrong icon. This should be Bonnie, but anyway. Because like Bonnie doesn't really care that much about not being able to ultimate. Ludovic doesn't care as much about not being able to ultimate, and these heroes don't care as much about not being able to ultimate. So this thing probably could fight some Dunlinger teams as well, but yeah. So that's twin teams. I mean, so far haven't really seen them on the arena, but maybe they will be more meta later on when people discover good teams for them. Like I said, these are kind of like the counters for twin defenses, in my opinion. Then Dionel teams. Once again, I don't really have experience with Dionel teams, so if your server is using Dionel teams, then you probably know better than me, because no one on my server is using Dionel. And when I checked the other players, couple other players as well, they didn't really have Dionel teams on the defense as well, so I don't really know how good they are. But from what I understand, these are kind of like the best heroes to use with Dionel. But I did some fights against Dionel team on the duel mode. Once again, it's duel mode, so it could be different from reality, but I was able to win using something like this team against the Dionel teams. And like you can see here that Dionel even had like, they had even like a Paragon 4 Dionel. So I think definitely Bonnie seems like effective against Dionel, because like usually Dionel is at the back, and then Bonnie's aging debuff will hit the Dionel, and then it will Dionel is quite squishy, and it will reduce his attack, so he should just die to the dot effect of the aging debuff. And then while the dot is happening, your Tassi and Tailin can hopefully just delay the fight long enough for the Dionel to die to the aging debuff effect. And with Harak teams, once again, I don't really see Harak teams that often. There is only like one team on my server that's running Harak, and it's this team. Now it's quite difficult for me to win against this team, because there is like quite big power difference. Like you can see that they have a Paragon 2 Pesto and Paragon 3 heroes, etc. So I think I've been able to win like once with this formation, but it's not like guaranteed win by any means because of the power level difference. But I remember that few people were trying to use Harak on my server like earlier on, but then usually I was able to win against them with just like the Aeron almost burst, because Harak is not very good at surviving at the start of the battle, so like the burst team can just kill them if they don't have enough support heroes to keep the Harak alive. These are a couple other team examples from other servers that had Harak in them, so maybe you can try them if you want, if you have Harak. That's about it. This is kind of like the meta update. And I would say that most teams, at least on my server, are either running some variation of the Bonnie teams on the map 3 or the map 4 or the map 1, but I wouldn't use the map 1. And then some people are still using these like old Scarletta Haven type comps, or Lily May Haven, or Tassi Tailin teams. But yeah, that's it for this time. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!